There's some box fence here. I can see that. We tried to turn that one off earlier, and it makes a horrible banshee scream.
I thought of it as more like a dolphin.
Maybe?
Yeah, yeah, it also doesn't necessarily matter where it is. With anyone. Like that one. Let me make sure I'm looking at the right thing. So this is the link that you're expecting?
Yeah.
Okay, so we do that. It generates a different YouTube link.
No, it's still waiting for me. Okay. Well, Pansexual says yes, it's working. Mama Tiger says hi. Can you guys hear me okay? Everybody that's on the computer? Or do you need me to speak into the mic better? Okay, well, we keep trying to get this set up. If you can hear the sound of my voice, clap once. If you can hear the sound of my voice, clap twice. If you can hear the sound of my voice, clap 3 times. Awesome. Here is the sign up so that I can keep track of everybody that came and got trained at least for this. This is only one part of several of the trainings that we need you to do. So this is ground control and active listening. So this is technically 2 and 3. 2 and 3. We still need you to do 1, which is trunk training. And then we need you to do an ICS training, whether it's ours or whether it's FEMA's. And then the last thing that we need you to do is radio comms training. Unless you know Flipside's radio's comms, and then you don't have to do it. And I can get that to you. I do have that. Or I believe, Citizen, were you going to be able to do a ICS training? Okay, so we have one that we can do as well that is sanctuary and Flipside specific. Yes. Yes. Yes, that'll be a comms training that I am going to schedule for next week. Okay, it looks like I'm going to get to sit because right now it says it sees me from here down.
Are you Signify Health?
I'm sorry?
Are you Signify Health?
No.
Okay, that's also live too.
If it's easy for you now, we can adjust the thing to be.
Oh, yeah. Okay, well, right now I've got 2 people chatting with me. Yeah, let me try that. I've got a couple people accessing it, so I'll give this to you. Your name and your burner name, and then I'll put the date at the top. Does anybody have any questions about the trainings that we do?
I did hypothermia, did ICS and sanctuary, anything for that.
Okay, so the question was if he did ICS at hypothermia, does he need to do NCOMs? Then no. If you did all of that for hypothermia, then you're good to go. Next question.
Where can we find the radio training?
I'm going to. I haven't set it up yet, and I'm going to do it a bit differently since this been beating my head against a wall for the last 20 minutes. So I might just do a Zoom and record it and then upload it to YouTube. But yeah, it'll only be like a half-hour training. It's not a difficult thing. That would be perfect. Any other questions about the trainings that you will need to be a sanctuarian before we get started? Okay, so the first question would be, why do we require so much training? We are a safety team. We are in the same location as Pets and Rangers and Echelon. And essentially, if there is a crisis or an emergency, we need to fit into the ICS structure as seamlessly as possible. We need to know what our role is and what our plan is. If we are the one calling the emergency, we need to know how to integrate other teams into the response, and so we can all work together as a cohesive team. On top of that, we're not counselors, we're not therapists, but we're still playing with people's mental health. That's just part of the reality. And so we need to know how to do things like talk somebody through something, not try to talk them down. We need to know that telling them, but you're not fat, or but you're so accomplished, when they're in a moment where they feel really fat or feel really unaccomplished, that doesn't help. That doesn't make them feel better. That actually isn't talking them through, that's trying to talk them down, and that tends to make things worse. So this is, I will give everybody access to the Google Doc on this. I'll just send a blast out to the entire group, so everybody has it, so you have the ground control and the active listening, and that way you can have it and you can read it at any time that you like. Okay, so in 2017, we had 45 incidents that Sanctuary worked with, meaning those were documentable incidents that people remembered to document. That does not include the ones where people were out roaming and they forgot to come back and write an incident report on it. We do ask that you do an incident report on any interaction that requires you to stop and take extra time with anybody. Our incident reports are confidential. They do not include anybody's name. It includes a description and what camp they're at in case we want to check in later. It is a fairly detailed piece of paperwork that's like, what services did we offer? What did they use? How well did it work? Did they leave happier than they came? All of these things. So I'm pretty sure we probably had some mobile sanctuary that forgot that they had something to document. So there was probably more than 45. But of those 45, 29 were experiencing emotional distress. 25 were feeling overwhelmed. 22 were disoriented. 14 involved pets. 5 involved rangers. 1 had a sexual element, which is nudity. And 3 involved violence or confrontation. So most of them, the vast majority of what we're going to see is people who are just overwhelmed. They're over hot, and if we give them a cooling towel or 20 minutes in the AC hut, they'll feel better. If we give them some water, they'll feel better. We also have tons of fans this year. Like, we have fans that clip onto the chairs. We have fans that clip onto tables. We've got fans. We have fans.
How many fans do we have?
All of the fans. So we do quite a bit. Go ahead.
I'm not trying to derail. Are we allowed to bring blank incident reports with us if we are mobile sanctuary?
I would recommend that you not, because if you have a clipboard with paperwork to fill out, they're going to feel like they're in a therapist's office. And if somebody is altered and is not feeling that great, and then all of a sudden they see this paperwork, they're not going to feel very safe. And our job is to make them feel safe.
Would it be possible to have that stashed in a backpack that came out afterwards?
Absolutely, that's not a problem.
Speaking for the ADHD people in this room.
Yes.
I've seen people use like this little flip notebooks just to be like, that's for their camping, for their.
Yeah. You know, however you want to. Because it has to make it back, because along with the ADHD, am I going to remember to take that out of my backpack and take it back to Sanctuary and give it to them? Because I know I need to remember to do this. I need to remember to do this. And then it's 3 weeks after Flipside, and I go through my backpack, and that's how my ADHD works anyway. One of the key components of sanctuary is we believe if somebody comes up to us and says, I'm being attacked, somebody's touched me, I've been raped, we don't question. We go, okay, I believe you. That is the first thing that we say to them. I believe you. Can anybody guess as to why? Go for it.
Because anything else feels like something that could happen to you.
Right, exactly. So what she said was anything else feels like the worst possible thing that can happen to you. In the real world, if they go to a police officer and they say, I've been raped, what's the first thing the officer's going to say? What were you drinking? What were you wearing? Right, exactly. And prove it, and were you doing anything to lead him on? We don't care. Everything about everything about Flipside is consent. So the first thing that we say to validate their experience is, I believe you. So the role of the very first part of this training is to identify how to create a safe space, the concept of listening without guiding, and talking through, not down. What do you guys think it means to talk through something versus talk somebody down? Yeah.
I'll let them kind of guide the conversation. And then you're there, what kind of offers?
So what she said was, I let them talk through the conversation. Yes, and if somebody is altered enough that they're just spinning, what I want to do is I want to validate their experience. First and foremost, that sounds awful. I can't imagine what that would feel like. Even if I think their complaint or their frustration is the dumbest damn thing I've ever heard in my entire life, that sounds like it's really frustrating. I'm not agreeing with them. I'm not telling them that their complaint is 100% valid. I'm just telling them that that sounds like it's really frustrating. And then I allow them to experience what they're experiencing. I might ask them if they see any solutions to their situation. I might ask them if they want me to offer any solutions to their situations, but we have to be super careful about that, because what can go wrong with advice giving? If it backfires, you're blamed for it. So we want to be very careful. And how I do this as a therapist is I say, okay, if it were me, and this is how I would handle it, recognizing that I am me and I know my resources and I have my knowledge bank, this is what I would do. What are some suggestions that you might have about what you could do? So that I'm not telling them what to do, I'm giving them an option. Yeah.
Can you also ask the person if they want to be heard, or if they want it?
Do you want advice, or do you want to? Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yes, you can absolutely ask the person, what do you need most right now? Do you need me to hear you, or do you need me to help you with solutions? I'm sorry?
Reports of a little bit of warble in the audio. I'll keep an eye on that.
Okay.
Let you repeat the questions back.
Okay, I'm trying to. I have no idea how to fix the warble other than switching the headset. So if I need.
So much better.
Okay. Okay.
Just working on it. Yeah.
All right. We need to remember that difficult is not the same as bad. I'm having a difficult time. Absolutely. Has anybody here not had a difficult time while at Flipside? We've all had a difficult time while at Flipside. We've all either asked for help from our campmates, our friends, or we've moved through it on our own. Well, as Sanctuary, our goal is to help them move through it so that it stays a difficult time and not a bad time, right? One of the first things that some people, especially that are not clinically trained clinicians, or like, you know what I mean, Experience is, I don't know that I can deal with this. Somebody comes up and they're like, you're sanctuary, I don't know what to do. Oh my God, what do I do? In times of cardiac arrest, take your own pulse first. Take your own deep breaths. Work on your own self-regulation. I am more skilled and I am more knowledgeable than I know. And if I can avoid 2 or 3 things, then I'm doing a great job. As long as I'm not going, you should do this. Better. So if the situation is triggering and it's 100% outside of your scope, and you truly believe, I should not be the person dealing with this, 1, check with your buddy. Because one of the number 1 rules of sanctuary is, for people who know, yell out loud, you're never alone. The reason for that is two reasons. Well, lots of reasons. 1, if shit really goes down and lawsuits are looked at, which I've never heard of that. You have backup. You have somebody else who's also part of the incident reporting process. And you have somebody else who also has knowledge, who also has experience. And if you have to step away because it is triggering you for whatever reason, then you have a partner that can step in. The other thing is to remember, there are people above you for a reason. There will always be a tree. And the tree is going to have some more training than you do. You have to have at least a couple years as a listener or experience in some other emergency disaster training before I'm going to let you be a tree. The next level up is a licensed clinician. We always have a licensed clinician on call. You don't have to go through the tree to call our MHA. If you believe this needs the MHA, call the MHA. If you don't know who the Sanctuary MHA is because you didn't look at the board before you went out on mobile, Sanctuary MHA, Sanctuary MHA, Foxfire. You'll get a hold of them, right? And if that doesn't work, yeah, sorry.
If something is like someone's being violent or something, is it okay to just call the Khaki directly?
If someone's being
violent or dangerous in some way, just call Khaki.
100%. If somebody's being violent, then call Khaki immediately. You do not need to go through Tree. You do not need to go through the MHA. You call Khaki immediately. Khaki, I need a face-to-face at this location. Who's Khaki? Okay, so Khaki is the observer of the chessboard of Rangers. And he's kind of the observer of the chessboard of all sanctuaries. So if we are all players within the safety teams, Khaki is the person that is sitting at the radio and knowing where the pieces are on the chessboard so he can move you where you need to go. Khaki is not actually out in the community. He's at Ranger HQ. And that's why we want to not only let our tree know, because she is our, chess master for sanctuary and she's knowing where our pieces are. Khaki needs to know so he can know where to send resources when stuff gets problematic. If there is violence, nudity that is aggressively sexual, call Khaki. You're not call Khaki and MHA, right? If you are the first on the scene, so this will make much more sense once you've taken incident command training. Right now, if you haven't, this might not make any sense. If you are first on the scene to anything, you are incident command, either you or your partner. You figure out who is going to take command of the scene. And what I encourage you guys to do, just to kind of get used to the ICS system, is imagine that every single incident or every single communication with somebody is an incident. So if, what's your name? Silver comes up to me and says, I fell down and I bruised my knee, you scraped my knee, and he has blood all the way down. Okay, I'm now incident command. I'm going to need more than one department because obviously that's going to require pets. So as incident command, I'm going to look at the resources around me. I'm going to plan what needs to happen next. I'm going to look at who I need to call. I'm going to look at, do I need to expand this bigger than just me and one pet's, one pet's group coming out, right? And then, say pets comes, he gets his, we talk to him, he gets his Band-Aid, he feels better, he feels safer. As in, I'm going to see the entire thing all the way through. And then when he goes, wow, thanks you guys are really awesome. I'm going to say, okay, I'm no longer incident command. Unless he's like, okay, you guys can go now. I don't want sanctuary. I've got pets here. And then you just hand whatever needs to be handed over to pets. So once you get an understanding of what incident command systems is, I encourage you to kind of see everything as ICS within the ICS scope and consider everything as MI incident command within CFLOP, which you'll understand. Command, financial, logistics, operations, and planning. Lots of terms. So stress is defined as your perception of your ability to cope. Stress is not the event, but your response to it. So yesterday I had to testify at a hearing with a very adversarial attorney ad litem. That is very stressful for me, especially because I've been on the stand before and made some goofball mistakes, right? That is looked at, it's the stress is not the incident. The stress is my worries and my fears over the incident and my ability, my perception of my ability to handle it. It's not even my ability to handle it. It's my perception of that. So if I believe I'm going to go on the stand and make a mistake, then that's going to increase my stress. So the stress cycle is a process of physical and mental responses that occur during the response. So we have our baseline where we start. I'm fine. I hear the tree crashing next to my camp. That actually happened several years ago. I am no longer at baseline, right? A tree has just crashed onto a camp that had many people in it. I'm now anxious. I have my alarm reaction, and sometimes that is more than can be handled by my body and by my mind. So for example, the tree crashed on a tent and on a car, and there was somebody outside of the air, like immediately outside of the camp, screaming over and over and over again, is anybody in there? Is anybody in? Is anybody in there? Is anybody in? Like repeatedly yelling. And I'm like, bitch, if somebody's in there and trying to yell for help, we can't hear them. That her alarm reaction was above and beyond what her body and her emotions could handle it. And she went into fight or flight. Does anybody know which one it was? Fight, exactly. She believed that there was a life or death situation and she is fighting, not necessarily for her life, but for somebody else's. Remember, fight doesn't always mean arms swinging. It just means I'm moving towards the situation and taking action for the situation. So we have our alarm response. We get adrenaline, cortisol, all of the fun chemicals. We move through the situation, that the chemicals leave our system, and we are now exhausted. It's adrenal overload. We are going to come across a lot of people who are in adrenal overload, sometimes just because it's so hot, sometimes because it's very overwhelming. As this safety guide, the survival guide says, there are no quiet places. There are quieter places, but there are no quiet zones. a flip side. It can be very overwhelming when you think, oh, I'm in the Badlands, it's going to be quiet. And then somebody sets up 3 speakers next to your tent and they're booming bagpipe music at 6 a.m. So within the alarm reaction, we tend to have 4 responses. We have fight, fight, flight, fight, freeze, and fold. So fight, flight, and freeze have the exact same physiological response. I'm going to take my mask off so you can see it a little bit better. I'm holding my breath at the top of the breath, and I'm taking short, shallow breaths. You see this, if you have kids, you've seen this. It's an exaggerated version of it. Adults tend to mask a little bit better, but I'm hyperventilating my system so that if I do have to run or if I do have to fight, my body can handle it and I'm amping up my adrenaline. That is a response from 50,000 years ago when it might actually be a bear that's attacking me. And I need to figure out what to do, and I have adrenaline fueling my system. Freeze is the exact same. I didn't know we had a phone. Is anybody keeping an eye on the chats? Okay. I guess. Freeze is the exact same physiological response, holding your breath at the top of the breath, often leaning forward, sometimes hands clenched, but you're frozen and you don't know what to do. So my example of freeze, I was walking my then roommate's dog on Town Lake, and I was doing a 10-mile walk around Town Lake. All of a sudden, on a part of Town Lake that I'd never been at before, a dog slips its collar and runs over and very ferociously attacks Saphira, my roommate's dog. Now, I've had to break up dog fights before, and if you didn't know this, here you go. The way you break up a dog fight is you grab them by the tail. You do not grab them by the collar because they will turn and bite you. You grab them by the tail so that if they turn to bite you, you can do this. Well, the dog attacking my dog had its tail and its ears shorn off. No tail, no ears. So I'm sitting here and my body's going, kick the dog, kick the dog. My brain is saying, kick the dog, kick the dog, kick the goddamn dog off your, like, and I'm stuck. You know, I have the body forward. I have the fists tight. The owner of the dog comes. I'm so sorry, he slipped his leash. And sure, right, okay. And of course, because I was still in freeze, I didn't think, I'm calling the police right now and reporting you because obviously this is a dangerous dog. And I'm glad Saphira is okay. I'm glad none of us got attacked. And I just kept going until about 10 minutes later when the alarm reaction came down, now exhausted, and my brain goes, you should have called the police. So why do we have freeze as a physiological response from when we were cavemen? I don't know, maybe, you know, often people in freeze will sometimes urinate on themselves. Maybe it made us smell bad to meat, I don't know, or to predators. I have no idea. But it is a response from that time. Is that a question for me? Okay. Fold is an entirely different reaction, and it will look like they are calm. Their heart rate lowers. They're holding their breath at the bottom of the breath. They're turning away. They're often putting their hand in front of their face, either in a fist or in a hand. It is the, I'm going to die. I have no options. I'm going to get hurt no matter what I do. So I'm giving up. And it will look like this. I'm still taking short, shallow breaths. I'm just holding them at the bottom of the breath. So I believe square breathing is later, but I'm going to go ahead and teach it now because it's appropriate for where we're at. Square and rectangle breathing. Essentially, you are having them do slow, measured breaths, holding at the top of the breath for at least 2 beats and the bottom of the breath for at least 2 beats. Square breathing is going to be 4 in, hold for 4, 4 out, hold for 4. I should have brought my buckyball to. If you want to be fun with it, I like what I call dragon wing breathing. Like I'm a dragon and I'm opening up my wings. I'm going to bring my hands up while I breathe in. And I'm imagining I'm opening up my wings as big as they can go. Or swing breathing. To me, music just get louder. Which is imagining you're sitting on a swing and going up is a breath, holding at the top while you're floating, and exhaling is a breath and holding at the bottom while you're floating. Breathing is one of the best ways to get them out of their cycle and change what they're experiencing. So, moving on to active listening. Yeah.
So, you commented on that this fold is going to look a lot like calm, but with this sort of defeatist posture.
Yes.
Is there any other clues you look for? Because sometimes people in that state, I've seen this, will say, "Oh, I'm fine. I don't need it."
You look at the breath. You're just looking at the breath. And if you have, I'm sorry, the question was that I said fold looks a lot like calm, and if somebody says that they're okay, how do we tell? And my response was look at the breath. If you have any doubt, say, I totally believe you. I feel the need to take a couple of big breaths. Would you mind taking some breaths with me? And a lot of times they'll be like, fine. Like, I love it when adults act like teenagers and they're like, whatever. That was good. Let's try it again. Yeah.
I've also heard of it called on instead of fold.
Yes.
Where it's more like a bargaining for your life. Instead of freezing or fighting or running, you're not bargaining for your life.
So except if you're bargaining, so she said she's also heard it called fawn instead of fold. And then it's bargaining for your life. I'm going to check the chats real quick. Okay. That was James. So if I am bargaining for my life, I'm fighting. I'm in fight or flight because I'm actively trying to help myself save my life. If I'm in fawn or fold, and you'll most often see this in abuse survivors, where anything that they did caused more abuse.
That's what I was meaning by bargaining.
But they know bargaining is going to cause more abuse too. So, yeah. Right. I personally would still consider that fighting. I would look at where their breath is. You know, if they're holding their breath at the top of the breath versus the bottom of the breath, and they're not trying to appease their abuser, they're actually fighting. If they're holding their breath at the bottom of the breath, then they're in fold and they're just giving up. Yeah.
What kind of scenario would you run into? I mean, it's where, oh, what would you doing? Like, something's happened, right? It's not just like,
So, oh no, yeah, I have absolutely been walking around and ran into people. I was walking, like I had finished my MHA shift I was doing burn day MHA shift. He asked how we would run into this. I was walking around after my MHA shift after the burn, walking back to my camp, and I saw what looked like a pile of discarded clothing on the side of the road. That happened to be a person in fold. They had completely given up. They had completely collapsed. And then it was my job to, well, I made the decision to, I didn't have to, right? It was, but help them get up, go to sanctuary. You will come across people and see like the breath, and you'll see it. Fold is much harder to see, but I mean, if you've been a lifeguard or ever seen somebody in panic, you'll see those, like, the whites of their eyes are showing, I'm in panic, or I'm in, fight or flight. Yeah, you will be walking around and see somebody that's doing that. And sometimes people will come up to us and say, hey, my friend's really having a hard time. This is why we have mobile sanctuary. So real quick before we start active listening, 2019 was effing hot. It was ridiculously hot. I'm hoping that's why we had a hard time getting people to go out on mobile sanctuary. We only need about 2 people at sanctuary at any given time. In general, there should be as many people many of us in sanctuary as there are participants. So if there are no participants in sanctuary, we need 2 people. That does not have to be the tree. The tree can take the cart and go on drive about, because you have no idea the soothing, healing ramifications of a cart ride. Go magic cart ride. So my expectation, we have cooling towels that will be kept in an ice water bucket that you guys can put around your neck. We will have, they're crappy umbrellas. So if you want a good umbrella, bring your own good umbrella, but we'll have umbrellas that you can take and walk around with. Bring a drink container, bring a Camelback, and be willing to go out. You don't have to stay out the whole time. Go out for a half hour and come back and cool off, and then go out for another half hour and come back and cool off. We are still getting known to Flipside in general. People still come up to us and that have been long-term Flipizins and ask, what are you guys? What do you do? Oh yeah, we're sanctuary. We're just here to help anybody having a rough time. You can just chill and talk with us. We have fidget spinners and we have snacks and we have blah, blah, blah. You want to come back and hang out, you're welcome to. Okay, so listening, yes. If you're on mobile sanctuary,
you should have your radio on you at all.
at least one of the partners should have their radio on them at all times. 100%. If you are mobile sanctuary, at least one person should have a radio on them at all times. You don't both have to have a radio. We don't necessarily have enough radios for that. And if you're mobile, have a radio, because otherwise, how are you going to call CACI? How are you going to call MHA? And have at least one of you that is comfortable using the radio. It is scary for so many people until you practice it. And when you do the comms training, it's relatively simple. You say their name twice, your name, wait for an answer. That's it. And then ask for face-to-face. There you go. That is pretty much the limit of what you will ever do. I need somebody to come to this location. Okay, so listening is the most important thing that we do. Letting somebody tell us their experience and just acknowledging it and saying that it sucks. Fixing their experience is not the most important thing that we can do. That is not our goal for them, because their experience is theirs and it's honestly theirs to fix. If you ever reach a point in a conversation with a participant where it's about you, you're not listening anymore. So as you see, I use my therapeutic storytelling to explain things I have to be very careful because it is part of ADHD when somebody's talking about their experience. Then I'm like, oh my goodness, let me tell you about my experience. Blech. That 100% is part of ADHD. So I have to be very careful not to do that. You guys don't want to do it either, unless you can make it very appropriate, brief, because you are showing them that they're not alone in their experience. And sometimes you can just ask them, would you mind if I shared you a story about a similar experience that I had? And if they say no, things about you, religion and spirituality, politics, values, do not come to sanctuary with you. They stay outside of sanctuary the minute you put on that t-shirt. Literally, I don't care if you are walking to or from your shift. You still do not get to have a spiritual, religious, oh, you should go do Reiki. Reiki is the best thing. It opened me up spiritual. That is not sanctuary. That is not what sanctuary does. If you find yourself prone to do that, put a rubber band on your wrist and have somebody that you know smack it every time you do it. I don't know, but give yourself some kind of punishment to get you out of it. Also, leave your troubles and difficulties behind so that you can listen to participants. Your partner kicked you out of your tent the other night, and for whatever reason, you gave them the power to do it. And you spent the entire night, sleeping on the ground, and now you're covered in sugar bites. Well, if that's the case, I probably wouldn't come to sanctuary. I don't want you scratching sugar bites all night. But you had a really bad night because of a fight with your partner, and now you're coming on your sanctuary shift. That does not come with you to your sanctuary shift. Yeah.
One of the things that I've heard before in other trainings is the importance of recognizing just because you're a sanctuary volunteer does not mean you don't need sanctuary. Because if you show up to your shift and go, I cannot do my shift, I'm sorry, I need to be here as a participant, you are doing what you need and you're making sure that you don't provide suboptimal care.
Right. So as Pleasure said, we need to remember that sanctuary is also for us. And if I had a bad night and I'm going to need some sanctuary before I can do my shift, I can ask for that. If I had a bad night or a bad day and I just cannot do sanctuary, hopefully we are never so shorthanded that we can't say, okay, you go home. If you want to, you can come check in on another shift and see if there's another time that we need you, but you go take care of you. Or stay and use our resources for you. Sanctuary is for everybody. I go to a therapist. We don't have to do this alone. We always get feedback from others. And I don't have to walk this really hard path by myself. If I find myself waiting for my turn to talk, it's not about them anymore, it's about me. Unless they're looping. Does anybody know what looping is? Does anybody not know what looping is? No hands. Okay. So unless they're looping, and then I might interrupt them and be like, hey, let's get some water. Here's a fidget spinner. Watch that loop for a while. So the acronym that I really like is WAIT. Why am I talking? Why am I talking? Am I talking to help? Am I talking to because they're now a peer? Am I talking because I'm giving advice? Bad Marissa. I like the concept of, so I'm a very kind of visual person. I like to imagine that I have a hula hoop around me and everybody else has a hula hoop around them. Within my hula hoop are my wishes, wants, likes, experiences, hopes, dreams, fears, worries, hates. Everything about me, everything that makes up me is within my hula hoop. My hula hoop and any of your hula hoops can touch, they cannot cross. This includes my partner's. My hula hoop can touch his. I cannot get into his hula hoop and do anything. And coming from a childhood with a borderline personality disorder mother, I had somebody that expected me to reach into her hula hoop and fix things as often as I could. It becomes very stressful. Even if you are the good-hearted, kind person who wants to take their load. Well, now you just have their load and they have their load, and you're both weighed down. Let them keep their load unless you see something that makes it relatively easy and simple that isn't advice giving, that lets them put that down, even for 5 minutes. But it's still their load. They're still going to have to carry it. It's their marathon. They've got to run it. Be careful about trying to get into their hula hoop and fix their problems, or sharing too much from within your own hula hoop and putting it in theirs. In order to be effective in a crisis situation, I first have to manage me. My self-regulation is key. If I cannot recognize when I am becoming dysregulated, then I cannot help other people who are dysregulated. Period. I have to recognize my own dysregulation. And sometimes I will do that by sharing it with the person. If they're sharing something that they feel very hurt or triggered or angry over, and I find myself getting angry, I'll share it with them and say, wow, I'm getting really angry for you. I'm really angry with you. That's not okay. I can share that experience and make them feel like they're not alone, but that's still my experience and my hula hoop. And now we are walking together with our hula hoops, but I'm not putting that on them. I'm not saying you're dysregulating me, you're getting me angry and you need to fix it, right? A lot of times when we hear remain in control of the situation, I need to control the situation, keep everything calm. Nope. I need to control me. I need to control my reactions to the situation, because I sure as shit cannot control anybody else's reactions to the situation. And if they're going to go haywire and crazy, I will do what I can. Another concept that we need to work on is dreams within conflict. Sometimes we will come across two participants having conflict with each other. We start having a conflict with the participant that we're trying to help. The biggest key is I need to know what my dreams are in any given conflict. So if I'm having a conflict with, what's your name? May? If I'm having a conflict with May, I have a goal. I have a want and a desire. She has a goal. She has a want and she has a desire. We have a dream. And our dreams are what, achieving our dreams is what's causing the conflict. This is true at any level of conflict. I want a baby and my partner doesn't. I want to go to the beach and my partner wants to go to the mountains. We both have a dream. I want an open relationship and my partner doesn't. Whatever it is. I want this person to come to Sanctuary so I can give them some water and have them sit down and cool off. And they don't. Well, what are their dreams? Work to find out, what do you want to have happen? Those are some of the most powerful words I have ever learned to say as a clinician. What would you like to have happen right now? A lot of times they'll tell you what they don't want. I don't want blah, 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 blah. Well, what would happen instead? and you work on getting them to give you what they want instead of what they don't want. But knowing their dream, knowing what they want to have happen, and just having them identify, it's not your job to achieve that for them. It's not your job to accomplish it. But having them articulate it out loud might help them clarify what they want to do in the moment. I just want to go lay down. Oh, hey, you know what? I have an air-conditioned place that we can go lay down. Would you like me to see if I can get a cart to come take us there? Because if you're like in the back 40, yeah, let's walk that half a mile to Sanctuary. Okay, so basics on active listening. Pay full attention to the person that is listening. This does not mean stare at them. Non-blinking. That's creepy, right? There's this thing called the dance where we're looking at each other. We look away, we think for a minute and then we come back. You nod your head and go, oh, wow. So we have these nonverbal responses of what they're saying. And I can break the contact and come back to the contact. Sometimes full frontal person is intimidating, especially when you're 6 feet tall and 3 feet wide and just like, I'm big. I have a big personality. I have a big body. That can be very intimidating. I just take a step back with one foot, get myself comfortable. So I'm not necessarily in this confrontational pose. Very confrontational pose. Hands on hips is judging and confrontational. Never, ever, ever. And I know so many people who are like, but I just relax like this. I know. And the subconscious body language of hands on hips or arms crossed. Arms crossed means I'm close to you and I'm not listening, even if you are giving all of the other signs of listening. So be aware of their body posture. Like if they're stepping back, that even if they're not recognizing it, they want a little bit more space. Give them more space. Just look for the subtle clues. If you are up and they are down and you can see that they're starting to get really uncomfortable, bring yourself down to them. If you can. Some of you have bad backs, some of you have bad knees. And acknowledge that. I wish I could get down on the floor with you. I just can't get back up if I do. Or, babe, you're in a patch of poison ivy with fire ants. I wish I could get down on the floor with you, but
Maybe we should get you out.
I would love to get you out of it. And let's call pets while we're doing it. So we look at, are they speaking quickly or slowly? Now, if I know, like, sometimes somebody just speaks rapidly. And of course, if they have taken an amphetamine, they're going to speak rapidly. If they've taken a downer, they're going to speak more slowly. Unless they have ADHD, and then I'm just going to talk fast no matter what. Do they appear agitated? Are they moving a lot? Or are they really sluggish? Are their eyes, are you having that dance of eye contact where you're talking to each other and then looking away at times and talking to each other and you're able to respond to each other's movements? Or are they like all over the place? I'm going to decide what I need to do next based on their body language and their reactions. If they're having trouble focusing on me, I might want to call in pets just to be safe. Might want to call in pets. Now, here's the difficulty. We are historically short on pets because they are all burned out. And they don't want to go from working to working. So we have to be very careful on how often we actually call in pets. But there's some situations, I mean, and we can call in a ranger sometimes instead, just to have backup there. But people sometimes, especially in an agitated state, can see rangers as an authority figure, the police, and get very uncomfortable. Can call in the MHA, all of these things. We want to be able to retain the information that they give us so that they feel heard. Somebody give me a minor struggle, like on a scale of 0 to 10, a 4 or below, that they struggle with today. Dude, I hear you. Getting out of bed this morning was a complete and total bitch. You are so right. So, fairly simple. I agreed with the statements. I said it again because I'm more likely to remember it if I say it again, even though that never worked with names for me. And they feel validated and heard. If it's something long and complicated, somebody tell me a longer frustration that they have that needs more detailed explanation. Sorry, you guys won't be able to listen to most of this online.
My boss came back to me and went on a whole story about how we had a plan of work-related celebration to like celebrate the end of the release that was going to conflict with that. He just wanted to let me know about that before he approved my time off.
So you put in your Flipside time off, and your boss came through and said that he has a work party celebration plan for that, so he can't give you the time off? Did I hear? Did I get it right? So he's trying to guilt you out of it? Wow. Did I hear it correctly? Awesome. I repeated it back, and I confirmed that I heard it correctly. When I am escalated, especially if I am escalated in a conversation, if I'm repeating back how I interpret something, sometimes the other person can tell me, no, that's not what it was. This actually happens in arguments and disagreements with my husband, where he says something and I'm like, okay, how I heard that is you think I'm a lazy asshole and that I'm not doing enough around the house. Is that what you're saying? Before I go, fuck you, no, okay, I don't do that. Maybe I don't do that. I probably do it in my head. But I confirm that's what I actually heard before I get angry about it. So there's responding, there's reflection, there's reinstatement. Interpreting is, they gave me a bunch of information and I'm having to pick bits and pieces out of it to see if I can catch a clue about what it's about. And that'll be a lot of what you're doing. Somebody comes to you and says, hey, this person's having a really hard time. You go to them and go, hey, I'm Marissa from Sanctuary. I'm like, I'm really tired. Do you mind if I sit down right here and we can talk? I'm probably not going to say, your friend told me that you're having a really hard time and I should come over and help you. So that makes people feel really good. No, I'm just going to say, hey, do you mind if I sit here? I'm so tired. And see if they want to talk to me. Ask them, do you know what Sanctuary is? Do you know what Sanctuary does? And then give them more information so they come to me. And then they dump their entire Flipside story on me. Blech. And I am having to pick things out about what they're struggling with. Oh, so your mom died on this day 4 years ago, and you feel really guilty about having fun here. And you feel like you should be grieving your mom's death instead. Yeah. I am taking a ton of information, picking through what I can and interpreting it, and then giving that back to them. And you always follow with, is that right? Did I get it right? Does that make sense? So the nonverbals that you give that show that you are listening. Wow. Ooh. Yeah. Uh-huh. Or even just nodding your head. I know that I'm nodding my head too much when I start getting vertigo, or that I have a migraine. When I start getting vertigo, I'm like, yeah, like I'm like really into the story that they're telling me. I'm like, yeah, yeah. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, okay. World spinning. Open-ended questions. Open-ended questions are questions that elicit a larger response. Tell me about how your day's going. Now, they can just say good. Actually, that is a closed-ended question because they can just say good. An open-ended question would be more like, is there something that you're really enjoying about Flipside right now? Strangely enough, I find when people have to find something that's going well, their perspective shifts immediately. So if they're coming in and they're really struggling, hey, how are you liking Flipside? Is there something that you like right now? And they, they'll come up with something, or they'll go, no, I'm having the shittiest time ever, and then here you go. But I'm asking a question that does not have a simple, easy, quick answer. So we want to avoid asking multiple questions. How's your day going? Are you finding, do you have anything you like at Flipside? That's 2 questions. 1 question, I ask a closed-ended question or an ambiguous open-ended question like, hey, how's your day going? Let them answer it, and then ask another question. Is there anything that you're enjoying out here, like in general at Flipside? Oh, wow. Is there stuff that you're really struggling with? Yeah, that sounds awful. So I ask them 1 question at a time and let them answer the question. Because if I'm having a bad time, if I'm overheated, if I'm overwhelmed, and somebody starts asking me 3 or 4 questions at a time, hey, what's going on? Would you like me to get you a cup of water? Do you want to come with me to Sanctuary? Okay, now you've heard what's overwhelming me, right? Closed-ended questions. I am looking for very specific information, yes or no answers. And there are times when an open-ended question is the best, and there are times when a closed-ended question is the best. Can I get you a cup of water? No? Okay, well, I'm going to get me a cup of water. I might just get one for you too. And strangely enough, if you put it right next to them or in their hands, they'll often drink. It's the illusion of choice. I gave you the choice to say no, but really, I'm going to give you something and then hope and pray you just take a drink of water. Unless the one time that you don't want to give them more water is, anybody? Bueller?
Yeah, they're overly
And ecstasy, right? Is it ecstasy and MDA? Okay.
So that reason is like, and this is like.
So hang on, because we have to ask why you didn't give somebody on MDMA water. So let me have our resident expert actually answer this to Mike.
You wouldn't want to give someone that's like really on MDMA lots of water, because what happens is the salt comes out of your body, and so people can overhydrate themselves with water, and that's when people start having seizures. That's when we start seeing that happening, because it's like water, you're sweating, you're peeing, all the salt comes out. Also, Molly, things like that are also cut with amphetamine, so we're adding in like more salt, more other stuff, and so things like Gatorade, pickle juice, electrolytes, all that stuff, which you'll have. So that's one of those things, watching what they look like and things like that.
And you can ask what they're altered on. have you taken anything? And because it's flip side and nobody's going to judge them, it's pretty rare that somebody goes, no, I haven't taken anything. Yeah, I had this, somebody gave me a acid gummy that, like, I've been high for 3 days. That happened in 2019. And the boyfriend dumped her at Sanctuary for 3 days. We need to, I'm working on, like, developing a policy on how we don't let that happen again. So using closed-ended questions can get information and facts. Did you get bit by a spider? Yes or no? I don't want to know their history with spiders and their phobia of spiders. I want to know if they got bit by a spider, got bit by a snake, whatever it is. I'm just trying to elicit a quick fact. Do I need to get pets out here? Do I need to get you water? Do I need to get you to our AC tent? What do I need to do? One of the biggest difficulties that we have is just holding space. Can I be comfortable with silence? Believe me, I am constantly asking myself, why am I talking? And do I just need to shut up, tolerate their silence, let it happen, and they will fill it when they need to. Unless I can see that something actually needs to happen. But sometimes people just need us to hold space for them. So what holding space feels like, at least for me, I imagine that I am throwing my arms around this entire room. I do this in my office. I do it with the way I decorate my office. I do it with anybody that comes and sits in my office. I am putting my arms around the entire room and concentrating on making that a safe place. There are some people who are very attuned to energy who may go, something's happening and I'm really uncomfortable with that, and then you pull it back, right? But you are just creating a space and holding space or time for them to experience what they're experiencing. Because sometimes all they need is a, yeah, that really sucks. And then you sit there for 5 minutes with them. In your brain, going, I should say something, I should say something, I should say something, I should say something. No, you sit there for 5 minutes until they say something and they invite the conversation in. Don't hurry up and listen. We don't heal participants. Even though I am a clinician and I am a therapist and my job is to help people, I do not do that out on the pecan playa. They are not my clients. They have not signed consents to see me. I cannot do any follow-up work with them. And there is a large chance that I might open something up if I'm trying to help them with something deeper that I cannot shut back down again before flip side is over. And now I've put myself at risk for a lawsuit. If you are just a regular non-licensed person, they can't sue you for it, but you're going to know that you tanked somebody's experience. When in doubt, don't talk. Okay. I think you guys can see me if I sit down. My back is killing me. And now I need glasses. Okay. So the window of tolerance is effectively, what can I handle and tolerate before I get over-aroused, hyper-aroused, or under-aroused, hypo-aroused? Before I go into fight, flight, freeze, and fold? before I hit my max in fight, flight, freeze, and fold, because I can be at a 7 and function fine. And that's in fight, flight, freeze range, right? I can be high up there without panicking, being the person that is trying to attack my rescuer. And I can still be functioning and still be helping. I was in fight yesterday while I was in court. I was definitely a 7 or an 8. I had to Klonopin on the counter, was going to take it an hour before court so I could like bring myself down some, and left it on the counter. So I'm sitting in my car beforehand, doing some meditations, doing some deep breathing, and I get in there and my hands are literally, I am in fight or flight, right? I still functioned. I only biffed one question. The rest of them I had okay. So in de-escalation, there's a concept of, I need Wendy Bird here to remind me what it is. Follow to lead. That's not right. Somebody that was in this rate, I just watched 2019's training. It's essentially, I'm going to follow their cues, and then I'm going to take it down a notch to see if they follow me. I'm going to lower the tone of my voice. I'm going to drop. I know you guys in the back can't hear me, but I'm going to drop the register that I'm speaking in. I'm going to be taking my deep breaths. I'm going to be drinking water while letting them have water next to them. All I'm doing is I am inviting them to slow down with me. Sometimes that will agitate people. And then you listen to them and you just bring your energy back up a little bit. But a lot of times, all you need to do, you slow down. If you're a guy and you have a really deep voice, do not drop the register of your voice. I would actually raise it up a little bit, because deep voices, especially from women that have abuse, can be very threatening. I worked with a couple where he had a very deep, booming voice, and it wasn't anything that he really even thought about. He was just had a very deep barrel chest and had the deep, booming voice, and he could be heard very well. And so when he was even slightly agitated, it triggered her into panic because it sounded like she was being yelled at. And he was just frustrated. He's not yelling, he just has the voice. So I want them to mirror me, yes. Yeah, exactly. There's a specific term that I'm looking for, but I can't find it. So I want to remain in control of me so that I can not be escalated, and now they're mirroring my escalation. Co-regulation. Well, except in co-regulation, especially with children, I'm actually saying, wow, I'm really frustrated. How about you come and regulate with me? And I'm encouraging them to follow me, and I'm being very direct about what I'm doing to regulate. I'm not necessarily going to do that for an adult because it's a little bit more demeaning. Condescending, yeah. Versus instead of me mirroring their energy, and their energy is very up and anxious, I'm going to bring my energy down. And it's 50-50. 50% of the time they'll follow you, and 50% of the time they won't. And that's, you do the best you can, right? So we'll talk, I have written down here, avoid the wrong responses, which can make situations work. We'll talk about some of those in a minute. The way you'll see that somebody's out of their tolerance window is their breath. So even though I was in fight yesterday, I was still within my tolerance window, partially because I was monitoring my own breath. I was working very hard to make sure my breath was in control. You will see, like you won't question it when somebody is hyper aroused and they're out of their tolerance window. You will not have any question whatsoever. Their eyes will be open. They will either be leaning forward. They'll often have their fists clenched tight
That could be like by their side.
by their sides.
They're like with somebody else. And it's like that like struggle to breathe and things like that.
Right. She said, so Momo mentioned it, their hands can be by their sides. They can be grasped and clenched. You're going to see the whites of their eyes more. Like you're going to see, you're not going to have a question. Once you've seen it, you're like, oh, that's what being outside of your window of tolerance looks like. And if you watch somebody slide into hypoarousal, you'll also see it. Where all of a sudden they're engaged, they're talking to you, it might be slower, it might be a little bit more lethargic, and then all of a sudden they're just like, sure. Okay. When you see it, you'll know it. And you'll go, oh, that makes so much sense. But it's one of those, until you see it, doesn't necessarily make sense. We never turn our back on participants for any reason. If I need to get something that's behind me, I'm going to do it from the side. I want to make sure that or I'm going to ask my partner to get it for me. You know, hey, Silver, would you mind going and getting the electrolytes or a spin toy or a weighted pillow? Or I'm going to maintain my face-to-face contact as much as I can so that person never feels like I've just been rejected. And remember, a lot of us are not neurotypical, which means a good deal of us have things like ADHD, autism, that are non-diagnosed and non-medicated, and we have things like rejection-sensitive dysphoria, which means perceived rejections can cause a lot of distress. Now, those of us who are more self-regulated and aren't altered aren't going to perceive somebody turning around to grab a pillow for me and putting it on my lap as rejection. Somebody who is altered and is more distressed might have more difficulty with that. We talked about no constant eye contact, monitor their reaction to physical space, and height can be very threatening. As being a 6 foot tall woman, both my clients, I had never met my client in person. I had only seen her virtually. So I met her in person at court. The first thing that she says, oh my God, you're tall. I had never met her attorney in person, only via Zoom. And like they're both like up to here on me. And they're both like, oh my God, you're tall. I thought you were like my height. That's very intimidating. And believe me, when I walk into courtrooms, I use that for like intentionally. Like, bitches, I'm standing up straight. I might, I very rarely wear heels, but I might have an extra inch or two going on for me. I will intentionally try to be intimidating. That's not what we're going for here. We do not want to be intimidating at all. Not even rangers want to be intimidating. A concept that we need to think about is the thinking error is called power play or power struggle. And that's where a situation has been created where there is a winner and a loser, and I need to be the winner. It can be as simple as, I know you need to drink some fucking water. If they're saying no, they're saying no. If I put the water down next to them and they throw it in my face, I mean, it's up to you if you decide that that's aggressive and that you need to call Rangers. I personally wouldn't, but because now I've got a cooling shower. You know, if they just say no, I'm like, all right, if you change your mind, I can easily get you some water, right? Even though I know it's been 90 degrees with 2,000% humidity and you've been sweating all day, and part of your bitch is that nobody else was helping you put up your camp, and you definitely need to hydrate and cool off. So I don't want to get involved in a power struggle even over something minor. Because if I've created a situation where there are winners and losers, everybody loses. It is uncomfortable, nobody's happy, and it's really hard to figure out when you are in that situation. The easiest way to figure it out is, 1, am I escalated? 2, do I feel like I'm having to defend myself or my position? That means we have created an attack and defend cycle. And I have to be the bigger person and get myself out of it. I mean, this goes for relationships too. If I'm with my husband and I find that we're in an attack and defense cycle, and I know that I have a good point and I don't feel heard and I don't feel validated and I don't feel listened to, you know, I can say, hey, we're in attack and defend. And he can go, and I got to be the grown up and pull myself out of it. So behaviors. We're often going to see some weird behaviors from people. Behavior is a form of communication. Ask yourself, what is the participant trying to gain by this behavior? I'm screaming at my partner. If I'm screaming at my partner, what am I trying to gain? Validation. I'm not feeling heard. I'm not feeling listened to. I'm not feeling desirable. I'm not feeling loved. I want to be heard, validated, listened to, and be told that I'm lovable. And what is the participant trying to avoid? Am I trying to avoid rejection? Am I trying to avoid feeling unworthy? And I'm using odd actions and behaviors to get it. So in times of stress, we regress, and it's usually a mess. When we are stressed, we will go back to behaviors that have worked for us before. That doesn't necessarily mean that they are behaviors that are appropriate. And they might be our 5-year-old behavior. When I was 5, this got me what I needed. And that means self-harming, purging, overusing drugs, whatever it is. What am I trying to gain? So with self-harming, there are a couple things that people can be trying to gain. I can be not knowing where I stop and the world begins, especially on acid or ecstasy or MDMA, where you're having these very surreal experiences and that hula hoop kind of feels like it's gone. And if I am cutting myself or burning myself, I know where my skin stops. I know where I end, and I know where the rest of the world begins. If I'm overstimulated and I'm hurting myself, I am lowering that overstimulation intentionally, or I'm creating my own stimulation. I might be trying to get the endorphins to come in to help me through the situation. Or I might just be wanting somebody to say, hey, stop that. Are you okay? I'm worried about you. Please, dear God, somebody see me. My most hated term in the world is attention seeking. That's just attention seeking behavior. Okay, so if they're seeking attention, tell them how they can get it from you in an appropriate, meaningful way. Because we all deserve attention. I seek attention from my husband all the time. I go up and poke him in the ribs, right in that, like there's a pressure point, like right here, and I go up and I poke him in the ribs. That's not necessarily the nicest way to get attention, and I know I'm going to get back what I give, but I'm getting attention, right? That is an attention-seeking behavior. I go up and I hug him. I get a hug back. That is an attention-seeking behavior. In couples counseling, we call it a bid. I am bidding for attention, affection, or intimacy. So if a person is self-harming in a bid to get attention, affection, or intimacy, it's what they know how to do. They are resorting back to what they know and what has worked in the past for them because they don't have more resources right now. Our job is not to condemn them, not to judge them. Our job is to go, wow, you must be really struggling if that's what you need to do to make it through right now. Yeah.
I have not actually seen self-harming before. What kind of things have you seen and in what form?
Usually what I'll see is people with nails digging into themselves. That's the biggest and the easiest one. You know, anywhere on their body, if they're digging into themselves. Usually that's I'm trying to give my own stimulation or decide where I am. And the other one is going to be putting cigarettes or something out on themselves. Have you guys actually seen that at Flipside? Okay, so that is another form of stimming. And I mean, sometimes you'll see rocking and flapping, but like, yes, hitting yourself in the head sometimes is, I'm just trying to knock this feeling or this thought or this belief out of my head. And that's not it. I have worked with one person ever in residential treatment who used it as attention seeking. And yes, she got attention because every single time she got she actually slammed herself into concrete walls. So it worked. And people do what works, right? It is so easy for us to go in and judge and say you're doing this for negative reasons. They're trying to get something. Their behavior, they're trying to accomplish something. And right in that moment, they do not have a more skillful way to get it. Our job is not to judge how they are trying to accomplish or achieve their goal. Our job is to help them reach it in a more appropriate fashion. Hey, it looks like you're really overwhelmed. I know a really quiet place that you can come to and has some AC. Would you like to come to it? Hey, it looks like you're really overwhelmed. I've got a place that's a little bit quieter and has a bunch of fans, and we've got some water and we've got some fidget spinners, and would you like to come? So they're not like banging their head or crumpled on the ground like a sack of dirty laundry, or, you know, going through their skin with their fingernails. Now, over and biting, that's harder for us to deal with because that's not something, like, I can't look at you and go, okay, I can tell you're over and biting. And I can tell that you're doing it to cope versus it's just hot and you're not used to how hot it is. And normally you can drink this much, or you're just a party person and you like drinking until you can black out and you think that's your version of fun or whatever. If a participant is making remarks that are directed at you, intending to make you uncomfortable or defensive, Work to unplay the power struggle by remaining in control of you, and often the best thing is to switch out. So in therapy, we have a concept called transference, which is you transferring emotions or feelings about a situation or a person or an event onto me. If you are doing that, then I need to step out. If all of a sudden I'm your abusive mother, or I'm the participant's abusive mother, and let's say I am engaged in this struggle, my partner's job is not to sit there and go, you got this, you go, or to not embarrass me by going, dude, let me come in. My partner's job is to tap me on the shoulder and go, hey, let me step in for a minute. My partner's job isn't to like maintain my feelings. My partner's job is to help the participant. And then if we get back and my partner wants to yell at me, fine, whatever. I can handle that too. Yeah, go ahead.
How do you handle a trade-off when you're out and walking around and you've got, say, one person who generally you get it on the radio and they do that kind of, and then you're out talking to somebody or doing whatever you're going to do?
So the question is, how do we handle a trade-off to decide who's going to be primary with a situation?
When you're out and about.
When you're out and about.
In sanctuary, when you're out and about.
To me, it's just like natural. It's just like, it just makes sense how we're going to do it. Go ahead.
To me, it's no different than in sanctuary. The only difference is there's fewer chairs. So it's just a matter of who happens to catch the person's eye first and starts.
So Pleasure said, yeah. Yeah, right. So Pleasure said it's no different than it is when you're in sanctuary. Essentially whoever starts contact starts is a good way to put it. And then if you can tell that your presence is disturbing to them, you can just trade off. And if you only have one radio, just unclip your radio and hand it to your partner. I mean, it doesn't have to be these big grand gestures. I mean, 80% of what we get is like pretty calm and tame. And they see us handing off our radio and they're like, oh, thank you. That was annoying me. The chatter was annoying me.
Well, I was going to say the other thing is just like we're always together, right? So like we're not like, both of us like, oh my gosh, like for this person, but it's like, I'm kind of like walking over here, but I'm never like more than like I want to be able to hear what's happening because like I'm keeping track of what's happening with you, but I'm also keeping track of what's happening with my person. And we have to have each other's back. So it's not like they're talking and then it's like I'm also doing my vocal sanctuary. It's like we're together, and it's just like it's way more intuitive. I think we all like get out in our head about what's happening, but it's like it's so natural.
So trying to sum up what Momo just said is, once somebody takes the lead, and you're gonna have to tell me if I get this right. When somebody takes the lead, it's just kind of natural for the other person to step back and lifeguard the situation and just keep an ear out for what's going on with your partner. Just kind of wander and act like you're clueless, but pay attention at the same time, so that the person isn't overwhelmed by two people. Another thing is you never want both of you standing over somebody and going, can we help you?
Are you okay?
Not anymore. I am not okay anymore. If somebody is coming at you, yes, not responding can sometimes add fuel to the fire, which is definitely when your partner comes in. But sometimes it just lets them vent their frustrations. And staying silent can be the best thing that you can do because anything that you say will add fuel to the fire. Go ahead.
Someone's like actually kind of trying to come at me and insult me. One way that I found to kind of diffuse that is to kind of agree with them a little bit. Like, yeah, I do look a little weird. That's right. That's fine.
So Darling mentioned that sometimes agreeing with them, you are such a bitch. I know. You're totally as me, not Darling's never a bitch. So that's like, yeah, I totally am a bitch. Like, I can totally hardcore be a bitch. I agree with that sentiment. Hey, do you want to tell me how I have been a bitch to you? Sometimes I need to learn and grow. Do I need to learn to be a better one or tone it down some? It also allows you to assess, and it allows them to slow down and think sometimes a little bit, or it gets them more escalated because their goal is to escalate. And sometimes having somebody respond to them is the goal, because if you are raised in trauma, and people will label this as borderline or whatever, if you are raised in trauma and calm is anxiety provoking because you have no idea when the other shoe is going to drop, creating drama creates safety. And so if that's the situation and they are just trying to provoke, one of the things that I like to do is label it out loud. Hey, it seems like you're really trying to piss me off. And I'm wondering why. You know, do you need me to step out and my partner can step in? Or do you just need to vent at me because I remind you of somebody? And if that's the case, that's cool. Like, I don't mind being that person for you for a minute. I'm strong enough to take it. So that I'm not, like, I'm identifying the situation, I'm labeling it for them. Hey, you're coming at me kind of hard. I'm wondering what's going on because I don't know you. Or if I do know you, then that means I do need to step out. Okay, examples of responses that, oh yeah, go ahead. Okay. So yeah, so she's asking if we do know somebody that's not a close friend and it might add something to the situation, should we just automatically have the other person step in? Is that what you're asking? Yes. Yes, that's exactly. I know this person, you know, they're kind of an acquaintance. Now, if I know this person and I know what can help, even if they're just an acquaintance, then help. But if I know this person and we aren't on the best of terms, that's why you have backup. I mean, I might even call in another set of listeners. You know, I'm going to take the radio and I'm going to go back 10 feet and I'm just going to ask for face-to-face with another set of listeners so I can swap out with my partner. And they have, now there's two people that person doesn't know and isn't in conflict with. We're never alone. You know, we either have our buddy, we always have our buddy, and then we can always bring more people in. We can call the MHA in. That's what they're there for. Hey, we need an extra person on scene. Call in the MHA. It doesn't even need to be one of the, yes, you have to bump it up to the MHA situations. It can just be, we need another person on the scene because they need an extra person and it can't be me.
Have you ever had a interaction where you didn't get along with the person and your partner didn't get along with the person that you were like?
Well, I've only been in MHA, so I'm always on my own. So I have not had that. So yes, has there ever been a situation where I didn't get along with the person and my partner didn't get along with the person? Has anybody here had that situation? With Rangers? Yeah, with Rangers it happens because Rangers have frequent customers. And once you get to know a couple of the Rangers, or once the Rangers get to know you, you're kind of a known entity and like. Okay, examples of responses that can escalate a situation. Why? I encourage every single one of you to get why and but out of your vocabulary completely. I don't know if you've noticed, but anytime I've said but, I've tried to switch it to and. I've been doing this for years and it's still a practice for me because I don't have it down pat. Anything that you can say but to, I can say and to. And that way I'm not saying I'm sorry, but cuts off the I'm sorry and then goes into something else. So even if it's I'm sorry, I truly do regret my actions. But You were an asshole too. What are you going to remember? I am truly sorry that I caused you any distress. And I'm not okay with your actions either. So getting but out of your vocabulary will soften those blows when you do need to stand up for yourself. And it's not just a, I screwed up and I need to apologize. And then why is always judgmental. I don't care how you're asking it. There are always other ways to ask the question. Why did you step in the pile of ants? Incredibly judgmental question. How were you such a dumbass if you didn't see that was a pile of ants and you stepped straight into it? No matter how I phrase the question, why is always going to be judgmental. And if you have a history of trauma and somebody that is an authority figure, and sanctuary is going to be seen as an authoritative figure because we are in safety and there is a power differential, I am helping you. So me asking why is going to be accusatory, no matter what. We want to get why out of our vocabulary at work, at home, with our partners, with our kids, with our students, and 100% with our participants. There are 100 different ways to gain information. So when I was 7, there was a concrete drive between my house and the neighbor's house. And I was sitting there and I was throwing a ball and bouncing it on the concrete on my house into my hand. Ground, house, hand, ground, house, hand, ground, house, hand, ground, house, hand, ground, house, window. I do what a good kid should do, and I go tell my mom, Mom, I broke the window. Why did you do that? Because I'm 7 and I don't understand the concept of every action has an equal and opposite reaction, and I don't quite have a good grasp of physics yet. As opposed to what happened. Tell me what happened. And so same thing, I had a car accident where, the answer was I was 16 and I was being stupid and I thought I knew everything. And, somebody was being an asshole and I passed him, and then I, hit a patch of sand from the last snowstorm we had, and I started sliding out and broke the axle of the car. Why did you do that? Well, the answer was because I was 16 and I thought I was hot shit and I was too stupid to know better. Think that answer was going to get me anywhere with her? Right. What happened? What's going on? What do you need right now? Even if I'm asking, why is the sky blue? What makes the sky blue? Who, where, when, and what? I can always change the question to one of those W's. Again, I encourage you to get why and but out of your vocabulary. You need to calm down. When in the history of calm down is telling somebody to calm down, ever calm them down? I hate it when I see cops with somebody on the ground and they have them arms jacked behind them and their face pressed into the concrete. You need to calm down. Fucker, I am not calming. I'm in fight or flight right now. I am in panic. I've got 2 large men shoving my face into the ground. Calm, maybe, hey, you're safe here. Okay, I'm probably not safe in that situation. But for us, instead of saying calm down, what you can say alternatively is something like, hey, it looks like you feel really unsafe. I want to let you know that you're safe with me. I see a lot of yawns, so we're getting there. We're getting there, I promise. So again, we go back to, what do you want to have happen? What's the goal? And we have to ask that as non-judgmentally as possible. What do you want to have happen? That's almost like, what did you think would happen? Dumbass. Like, think about, would dumbass sound appropriate after the way you say it, or with your tone of voice, or is dumbass applied with how you said it and your tone of voice? And if that's true, then you're saying it wrong. So if you do need somebody to calm down, hey, I'm getting really anxious. I'm labeling what I'm experiencing. I need this brought down a notch. Is there any way you could do that for me? I am asking them to do me a favor. You would be amazed at how often telling them your experience and asking them to do something for you to help you, because we like to help. We are, as a whole, Flipizans as a whole, even though as snarky as we are on that freaking Facebook page, we are a group of helpers. If you go on Flipizans and say, I'm really struggling, oh my God, I need help, you're going to have 10,000 people coming to you going, I got you, babe, what do you need? Strangers, do you need me to send you money? Do you need me to go take you to the ER? What you need? Like, we are a group of helpers. So if somebody is very escalated and you're like, okay, I'm getting really anxious. Hey, I need this brought down a little bit. Do you think we can bring this down some? I'm going to take a couple breaths. And then again, that's, I'm trying to get them to mirror me. I'm just going to take a couple breaths because I'm getting really anxious here. And I'm labeling my experience. I'm identifying it as mine. I'm making sure that they know that it's my experience. And then I'm asking for their help to keep my experience from going up. If they say, that's not my problem, switch out. Just say, you're right, it's not. You're totally right. Validate that my experience, what's going on in my hula hoop is not their problem. And then I'm going to switch out. If I'm labeling something for them, I'm going to label it like it is a appearance. You seem upset. You seem frustrated. You look really angry. I'm not angry. Sorry for the microphone, guys. Okay. You look kind of angry, but I can understand that you're not. Sometimes I misinterpret it. But you seem pretty upset. Is there anything I can help with? Will you take a breath with me? I'm going to take a breath. And again, especially if they are altered teaching dragon wing breathing, we're teaching them to open their wings and like spread them as big and as large as they possibly can, and then close them. Work very hard not to contradict. You're wrong. That's not, go ahead. Sorry, there's a question.
Would you say that I'm new to the flip side community, but not necessarily to reopen community run kind of situation? Like, if they're open to it, doing stuff like humming and stuff that
So she's asking.
It's like, in the realm of
May, right?
yes.
So May is asking if we have other tools that work for us, that we know ground us. Like a weird one that I use is toe pressing. Like I'll just look at somebody who's really escalated and go, okay, I'm going to ask you to do something super weird. I know this is crazy. I'm crazy. That's just how it is. Can you press your right big toe into the ground as hard as you can? It changes the part of the brain that they're working with and helps de-escalate. On the Sanctuary Facebook page, I started a thread of what are some of your favorite grounding techniques? You know, mine are 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5 things that I can see of one color. I don't say 5 things that I can see. There's too many options. 5 things that you can see that are pink. 4 things that you can hear. And you can switch 4 and 3. 3 things that you can feel on your skin. And obviously, you know, so if they're overwhelmed, you might want to do three things that you feel on your skin, because then they're thinking with a different part of their brain before you get to what are 3 things you can hear. And then it asks them to separate things out. So like in here, I can hear the fan that we have going on back there. I can hear the music. And when the saw is going, I can hear the saw and hammering. So I actually have to think about it, which switches me to the other side of my brain. 2 things that I can smell, again, switches me to the other side of my brain. And then 1 thing I can taste. I can taste the aftertaste of the aspartame or whatever the heck is in this drink. It's very strong. Use and rather than but. We already talked about that. Acknowledge their experience without agreeing. I might feel that way too. I can see how that's really difficult for you. I can imagine that's really frustrating. I've just worked with 2 moms that have completely lost custody of their kids for very justifiable reasons. I feel ganged up on. I feel lied about. I can imagine you do. That has to be really hurtful. Okay, so our 3 guiding principles. We need to meet the needs of the participant that we're helping. What do they need in the moment? Often they can tell us. If they can't tell us, then we're just going to offer them basics. We have a ton of stuff at Sanctuary. I don't know that we have coloring books anymore, because we do? Okay. So we have coloring stuff. I don't know that anybody has ever used them, but I don't sit at Sanctuary that often, so yes, they have been used. Okay.
There's coloring books, there's stuffed animals, there's fidget spinners, there's puzzles, there's bubbles, there's all kinds of things.
We might not do bubbles just because, unless we get the little individual ones and then everybody gets their own bubbles, but then we have to worry about MOOP. And we'll have glitter jars that I have hot glued the shit out of. So hypothetically, somebody who's high as can't open it and dump it on the ground, because then we have moved ourselves. But I have glitter jars, one that makes nice swirlies the more you shake it, and the other one just suspends really, really well and falls very slowly. So, and we have, we have weighted stuff that people can put on their laps, and it's the mermaid pillows that can go back and forth. And then we have snacks and water and electrolytes. We cannot encourage somebody to take electrolytes. That is seen as us prescribing, but we can say that these are available. They say, yeah, I took a bunch of ecstasy and I'm just really struggling right now. Oh, so sometimes electrolytes can work. We have some if you would like them. I might see if I can get some pickle pops, even though I won't have a way to freeze them. But then we'll at least be like, here, have some pickle juice. We need to show respect and dignity to everybody. And that's really, really hard sometimes. That's just a reality. People come up to us with the stupidest effing thing in the world. And showing them respect and dignity. Wow, that sounds really frustrating. I can imagine how that would be hard. Put on your game face. Or they say something like, I just can't stop thinking about how Trump won the election. I can imagine how that's frustrating for you. I can imagine how that brings a lot of distress at a place like this. And we want to maintain the safety of everybody involved. At no time should I be unsafe. If I feel unsafe, one, be careful about saying it to the participant. Sometimes saying, hey, I'm feeling really unsafe right now. It seems like you're really angry. Sometimes that can calm them down, but it's such a judgment call. That is such a judgment call. But our goal is to maintain everybody's safety, including mine. Do not make two victims. If I am burned out and overwhelmed and going in and helping this particular participant is going to just take away every single spoon I have, I am now unsafe. I have now made two victims. I should save that for another participant who needs something different that isn't going to be as difficult or triggering for me. And there is no shame in saying, I can't handle this to your partner or to your tree or to your MHA. If you feel shame in that, then I've got some names of some really good counselors. Believe me, I have people that I'm like, I can't help with this. This is outside of the scope of my experience and my knowledge and my training. Or I'm going to hate every single moment that I speak with you. And maintaining my own calm is going to take every single spoon that I have and I will have nothing left. Does anybody not know what I'm talking about when I talk about spoons? Because the other, I can use battery is like, it can drain the rest of my battery. I like battery better, but people tend to know spoons more. Say that again? Spell slots. Nice. I'm not a spells. I miss Harry Potter, the game. Oh, okay. Okay. 3 guiding principles that will help you in any situation. If you're not sure what to do, will my response meet the needs of the person? Will my response be respectful and dignified? And will my response maintain safety? If yes, that's probably the right response. If it does not meet those 3 goals, it's probably not the best response. And I'm not going to have the perfect response every single time. And sometimes I'm going to say the one thing that will trigger that one person, but will work for everybody else. And that's not my failure, that's just what it is. And I have to be okay with that. I have to be okay with the concept of failing to help somebody and somebody else had to do it. That's just a reality. Okay, so altered participants. Common features of a difficult altered experience. Fear of going crazy or losing one's mind. Reliving old traumas. Paranoia, distrust, or fear of being judged. Feeling of being stuck. The 5 S's. If we can, we want to get this information from the participant, especially because like in 2019 with that girl that had the acid gummy, that was a multi-departmental problem. I don't know if the guy did it intentionally or accidentally, but however he made those gummies, they were fucking up people's world for days. And so now we have a multi-department problem because pets is being called in, Rangers is being called in, sanctuary is being called in. So we want to know the substance. I had a acid gummy. Self. Can they handle it? Do they know their own threshold? Have they hit their own threshold and passed it? Source. Do you know who gave it to you, and do you know if you can trust them? No, it's just some guy that said he had acid gummies and I was interested in it. No. Okay, set. What is the mental state that this person is bringing to the experience? Were they coming in already hurting and frustrated and scared and overwhelmed, and they thought taking an acid gummy would help with that? And then setting, the physical and social environment. I've already put in the order for the dry front and the possible cold front, but we've had 100-degree heat with 90% humidity at Flipside. And then ant bites and spiders and noise and, the physical and social environment that we're in. People don't realize that it completely alters their experience even with a known drug. And some people come in and are like, I'm going to try ecstasy for the first time. By the way, don't do that at Flipside. Don't try any substance for the first time at Flipside. It's a bad idea. And the other thing is, did they know they were taking something? Well, there were these brownies that were on the table and I was told I could have some, so I had a brownie. My husband has been dosed 3 times. First time was brownies. Second time was lemon poppy seed muffins, because they should be safe, right? And the third time was like some sort of pie or something that I wouldn't have even expected. So like the first year that I went to Flipside, he was like, you don't eat anything that doesn't come from our camp. Like, okay. And I made sure to ask, somebody offered me brownies and I was like, are these special brownies? They're like, yeah. And I'm like, I'm good, thanks. When hopefully Lurko's not offering everybody grog this year. Here, everybody, but is he going to ask everybody to put their lips on the same jug? Who knows? It depends on how drunk he gets. If somebody approaches you with a gallon jug and says, would you like some grog? Everybody else's lips have touched that grog. And one year I actively had cold sores and I was like, no, I've got cold sores. I shouldn't touch that. And he's like, it's fine. Ew. Okay, this is a lot of information. We have an hour and 18 minutes of information that I've just given you, and you still have more to go. Not tonight, obviously not tonight. But you do need to do the trunk training online. You do need to do a form of ICS training. Don't care what it is, whether it's ours, whether it's FEMA's. Ours is going to be shorter and less boring.
More specific to our context.
And more specific to our context. FEMA's is more specific to like firefighters and police and people who are going to be responding to larger crises. I believe so. Okay. I think we have Code Orange Vest in another training, but I will say it here anyway. So what a Code Orange Vest is, it is the only thing that we use that is not plain speak. Every once in a while, you'll hear somebody say, Roger that bacon, or I don't think I've ever heard anybody use those. Okay. Sometimes they'll use like old school Flipside specific stuff, like bacon was out, I think. But I haven't heard anybody say any of that stuff. So we use plain speak on the radio. We have to be careful of our plain speak. We don't want to say, hey, somebody just got an acid gummy and blah, 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 because our radios are monitored by law enforcement. But we want to use plain speak. I need a ranger to this location. And so we use plain speak, closed loop communication. The one non-plain speak thing that we have is a Code Orange Vest. So if we have a situation that is going to require more than 2 teams from 2 safety departments, that is usually considered a code orange vest. And what that means is that we are going to have people converge either to their own department. So for sanctuary, you go to sanctuary. If you're not on duty and you hear somebody say code orange vest and you're like, I'm in, I'm helping, you get your shirt first. Because it's never so emergent that your assistance is going to be needed right then. If you don't have your shirt on, you are going to be seen as a kind-hearted participant that's getting in the way. Put your shirt on, go to sanctuary. Sanctuary will be told where they need to get their people to. And the tree is directing the MHA and everybody else, because the tree is our chess master. Right? If you hear code orange vest, unless you're the one calling it, go to sanctuary. That's pretty much the basics of what you need to know. Code orange vest means that there's been a critical incident. Something is on fire and it's bigger than, and we need multiple teams because we need a perimeter. People are injured. People are scared. And we need help with a bunch of stuff. We actually have a big box that has commander for incident commander, sanctuary, fire, has all of the different resources so people know who is doing what, and it creates the chain in command. Now, sanctuary historically has sucked ass at living within ICS. Last year on burn night, there was an ICS situation in sanctuary. I was called in and I asked the tree and the MHA, who is IC? And they looked at me like I was growing antlers out of my head. They had no clue. So what I did was assumed I'm now IC. I was very, very, very incorrect. Sirius was IC. But my people were so far removed from what the heck was going on that they couldn't tell me a single thing. So I went in and I accidentally started freelancing, acting outside of the command structure with intent to do good, but not really helping. So a code orange vest is shit's going down. A tree has fallen on a camp. The wind shifted during the burn and the ashes started falling and created multiple fires. Say that again? Flood side. I was lucky enough that I was able to bug out before any of that happened. So for those of you that don't know, at flood side, we were instructed by higher ups, people need to get off the land by noon, not by 5, which is our normal get off the land, but by noon, because we were expecting torrential rains. And then, of course, there were some people who just didn't listen, and there were some people who had to stay. And a dam burst somewhere upstream, which caused, and we are actually camping in what used to be part of the old riverbed. So when the dam burst, we became the riverbed again.
Three little islands is all that's left.
Yeah, there were 3 little islands. That is a code orange vest event. We need everybody on their game, acting as a team under one unit of command with a plan. And if I don't know who command is, the first thing that I do is I find out. It's easy enough to go on the regular channel, Khaki, can you tell me who command is? Because I don't want to tie up the other channel that they've been shifted to with my chatter, and give Khaki a chance to respond because he's juggling like 15 balls now. But yeah, it's easy enough to find out who command is. And if there's active stuff going on, you know it's not you. So you go to sanctuary. No matter what, if you're off shift and you want to help, get your shirt and go to sanctuary. Yeah.
Can I ask, when we're out on patrol, and if you needed to call someone in, how can they find you? I mean, it's been lots of times when I've been out on events, like, to pinpoint exactly where I am. I mean,
Okay. So if you look at this actually has a lovely grid. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Sometimes it's easier to just say what street you're on, and Khaki will probably be able to know where you are by what camp you're at, especially because, you know, we have groups of camp, and if you say I'm at Red Camp, he's going to know where Red Camp is. I'm at Circle of Fire. He's going to know where Circle of Fire is. I'm at Fan Camp. He might or might not know where Fan Camp is. Goodness knows. But yeah, we do have a grid, and if you want, you can always print out the map with the grid and carry it with you before Flipside. I will try to have a bunch that you can like put in your pocket and take with you. In fact, can one of you guys email me that right now? Because ADHD, I won't remember by the time I walk out of this room. So we do have grids, and Khaki will know the grid. So if you say I am at D4, Khaki will go, okay, she's on the, well, D4 is the effigy field. So I'd pretty much just go, I'm at the effigy. But, you know, if I'm over here, I'm at H6. He'll know what you're talking about, and he'll send somebody to you at H6. In general, if you are going to take somebody back to Sanctuary, make sure that Sanctuary can handle that. We have more of an issue with Rangers coming and just dumping people off at Sanctuary because they're being helpful and they know this person needs Sanctuary. So instead of calling us out to them and having us assess the person, they just bring them over to Sanctuary. Well, and like, so at Safety Side, we had this, it actually was a fun, functional exercise. It wasn't terrible and awful like it sometimes can be. And essentially we had somebody who had stolen a person's Cookie Monster suit, and a mean alien who stole the Cookie Monster suit. So the person whose Cookie Monster suit who had been stolen was already in Sanctuary, and we're trying to help her. And then all of a sudden they're bringing in the altered alien who stole the Cookie Monster suit to try and fit in, and she loses her shit. It was amazing. So we ultimately want to go to them and assess the situation, and then talk to Tree to say, I'm bringing back a participant that may need air conditioning, or that just needs a quiet place to sit, so she can go, okay, do I need to call the MHA in because we've got more people here than we have volunteers. Like, so remember, there are chess master. They need to know what's going on and what's happening. So if you're taking somebody back to Sanctuary, radio in, Tree, and you don't even have to know their name. Sanctuary Tree, Foxfire. Actually, I can't say fire on the radio. Fire got really upset the first year I used that. Foxy. Yeah, they don't like hearing fire. It kind of gets them all. Yeah, they still didn't like hearing fire at all over the radio. So I'd say Sanctuary Tree, Foxy. Let them know what's happening and quick Brief, informative, fair, and friendly. Biff. Or KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. Either way, let them know what's going on before you bring them into your sanctuary. Okay, that is pretty much our training for tonight. Real quick, Citizen, is there any way you can write down all of the people that seem to be attending? You are amazing. I love you. Thank you for being a step ahead. Okay. So if you guys online are done and you don't have any questions, you're free to bail. I'm just going to be answering questions from here on out. Go for it.
This is just something I remember from Freezer Sanctuary training, but is it the same at Flipside Sanctuary training that once you leave, or once this person leaves Sanctuary, you do not know them?
Correct. So we do have confidentiality at Sanctuary. Once somebody leaves Sanctuary, unless we are intentionally checking in on them because they were too altered, because they were terrified, because they agreed to let us check in on them again. Hey, do you mind if I come by a little bit later? Still on shift. But once you're off shift, when you see that person, unless they come up to you, you don't know them. You know, you can always get permission. You guys aren't therapists. You can hang out with them. If you're like, wow, we really click and, you know, you'd be really cool to hang out with. Would you like to hang out later? And they're like, yeah, we do really click. Okay, that's fine. And then you can meet up. But ultimately, how did you guys meet? Oh, we were just hanging out. You don't tell people they went to Sanctuary. Because that person will probably tell them on the, you know, their own. Oh, this is my therapist, Marissa. Yes, I am. So remember, confidentiality is key, even though we are not clinicians, we are not their therapists. Nobody has to know somebody else's business. And the biggest thing here is do not go back to your camp and sit around your camp's table and talk about what happened at Sanctuary. If you need to decompress and process, we will have a lead on call. One of us is on call 24/7. We will have an MHA that you can call. You can go talk to the tree. You can go sit down and process with somebody else. Use us to decompress your difficult situations. I never want to hear somebody sitting at the table in their camp and telling their campmates about this really difficult situation with this asshole who wouldn't stop talking about Metallica and then is like, oh, I know exactly who that is. So we do not decompress by talking to even our partners. Because now our partner knows, and what's the best way to keep a secret? Bury it in the backyard. The more people know a secret, the more people are going to spread the secret. So we don't get to decompress like that. That's just a reality. Any other questions? Would you guys use this location again for training? I tried to find other places. It was hard. So far we've used my office in 2019. We've used this place. We've used here. I know my office is hard to get to if you don't have a car. The closest bus stop is a mile away and a lot of hills. Yeah.
Would out there make more sense than in here, perhaps?
I don't know because the sounds, well, I actually scheduled it for tonight, not knowing that they were going to be here. So I think I need to find a way to know when DAF is going to be here, unless they're just here all the time. Yeah, because I thought it was Wednesday and Sunday. Okay, so I should have scheduled on a Thursday. Okay, yeah. Right, exactly. So comms training will be probably Tuesday or Thursday night next week. Just I like to be consistent. It helps my ADHD brain.
We're gonna do an NHA tree gathering next Thursday, it'll be in that email.
So radio comms will not be Thursday because we're doing an MHA tree gathering on Thursday, and I will be at that. So MHAs and trees. We just want to get together, let you guys ask us questions, give you guys kind of the training materials on what the checklists are, and let you guys get to know us as your leadership.
Thanks for coming, guys.
Yeah, I really appreciate you guys coming out. Yes, it will be emailed and it will be on the Facebook page.
Really, I can give him this bag of clothes and he'll get it for you.
Hang on, I'm gonna shut off the,
I don't know how this place is set up.
it doesn't matter. Okay. And screen.
Shot.